I would like to talk about the flow of water. And the flow of water is always even. In the word even, the main consonant, the main definition is the V. I'm going to make a V with my fingers. And that's usually called a fork because the tip of my fingers are four. And the opposite of F is V. V is a vacuum. I'm going to demonstrate a vacuum action now. I'm going to make a valley in the bottom lip. There's a valley right there. And then I'm going to activate my voice. Va. And when I open, I get the va sound. V is nasal if you hold it. If you hold the V, the sound coming out your nasal. Va. Just like if you put your tongue at the top of your mouth, na, or the back, nga, and force it open, nga, nga, so forth. Now notice that the shape in the bottom of your lip, when your teeth are planted in the lip, is a little valley, shaped like the V. Now you can get two sounds. You can get the nasal, which I've already pointed out, and that is coming through your nasal. Va. Now you can use alveolar plosive and create a force of air that forces outward from your mouth, and you got fa, but you still got that valley shape. Fa. See? And fa is a moment of forking, a fang like it, the fang of your teeth pierce something. That's a moment of fang. And that is a stop and go. The fang is not a continuous action. Like I'm going to use my fingers. Well, they're not. I'm going to pretend like it's a snake fang biting me. Uh-oh, that wouldn't feel good. It's a moment of piercing, a moment of forking. That's why we call it a fork that we eat with. There's a moment when you fork the beef you're eating, fork the potato, fork a boiled egg, fork whatever is on your plate. That's a moment of fork. And then you pick it up and you eat it. Another one is fan. You fan the air, see? I'm using my finger to fan the air, see? Why do you think those are called fingers? Because you use the finger to fang a seed into the ground. That's a fanging action. And that fang action is masculine. And without that fang action, life does not exist. Those little creatures in the man called the sperm have fangs on the end. Microscopic, though. You can't see them unless you have a microscope. And even then, you can't see it unless you have a really powerful microscope. Because a lot of fangs are so small that it's impossible to see with the naked eye, and it's impossible to see with a microscope that's not powerful enough. But you can see the action under a microscope. And as the sperm cells that have fangs, they come in contact with the egg. And there's a fang action right then. There's a touch. And that's one of the meanings of tear, to touch. As I've already explained in other videos, I'll explain again now. The The T is a dental, if you put your teeth together, notice the word together has T in it, and you touch your tongue to the back of the teeth. Notice the tip of your tongue had T in it. The word tip has T in it for a reason. And it is a dental alveolar plosive, and there's an airflow. And then there's a stopping of the airflow or interruption. And then when it starts again, you get that. And in slow motion, it would be, I'm going to blow the air for a few seconds, then stop the flow for a few seconds, and then start the flow again. Here we go. Stop and go. And do it all in an instant. And one of the meanings of is to touch. So when the fanging action of the sperm touching the egg, that's a moment in time. Now, one of the meanings of teed is to touch the path of water. And that's why we have the word tide that has T and D in it. T is the consonant, and so is D. And the tide, high tide has a moment of teed at the top. It only lasted just for a moment. And then it starts to come back down to low tide. And that timing of those two events, or two opposites, high and low, is called teed. Now, the timing of the continuum is called time, and you got the M in there. And M is a continuum. M, you can keep it going. And when you touch that continuum, it's called then we say time or tim. And often that word is associated with a building, a temple, which is sort of a holding or a place where we can go and honor the deed of the creation. So at the moment that sperm touches the egg, the fang, the touch takes place first. And after the touch, then in an instant, the fang pierced the egg, and thus life begins. So the unfang is a masculine action and always will be through all eternity. And the beginning, or the beginning, is life within the egg. And that's how I came to be. That's why I'm here talking to you right now. Now let's get back to the V. Remember, and I'm going to repeat this in case it went over your head. V is a vacuum. And if you hold your mouth underwater, you can do this if you go to a place where there's clean water and you're swimming, and you hold your nose above water, and you put your teeth and you put that valley in your bottom lip, and you make the sound coming through your nose. Water will filter through your teeth. And the opposite of V is always a L. So since you're doing the V, vacuum, you're creating an outside force. The water is being forced through your teeth. So from outside, the water is filtering through your teeth as you go, va. That's why we have the word like vacuum begins with a V for a reason. And without this vacuum, the V does not exist. And you can see the action of the water that is even in how it travels. Remember, water is not still. A pond with still water is dead. And don't even ever drink water out of a man-made still water. Because still one of the meanings of still is death. It like steel. Steel doesn't flow. Steel is like for, like we use steel to make the beams of a of a building and so forth. But water is not like that. Water even implies a movement. And that movement is a type of vacuum and force. When the roots of a tree go into the ground, that's a fanging action. When water is in the root and it forking into the ground, that's a fanging action. And then, as the top of the tree warms up, the water flows the other way. It vacuums water out of the ground and forces the water into the top of the trees and make flowers, which begin with an F for reason, because that's the result of a force. And the water follows a magnetic. The elements, the water vacuuming from the ground has elements in it. Those elements are deposited above, and they follow an invisible magnetic waveform. And without this magnetic waveform, life does not exist. And it shapes all the plants, animals, and people, and all life form. The birds, the fishes, and so forth. And all movement of water always take that V shape. Like I have blood veins, and the word vein begins with a V for a reason. It forks out. And my body, my blood, which is mostly water, carrying elements, evenly distribute to all parts of my body, giving my body that which is necessary, the nutrient, via the vein. A good way to look at the V is the tree. If you look at fruit trees, a lot of V shape, you see a lot of V shape. Especially in the wintertime, you look outside and you can see the V shape at that forking out, reaching up to heaven. A tree reaching up to heaven must have roots reaching down to hell, hell being below, heaven being above, so to speak. So when we say that the water is even, as it talks about in the Oera book, it's not talking about lifeless, still water. It's talking about flowing water. And if you have dry ground, and now ground means it ground up. We're not talking about pouring it on a rock, but we're talking about, let's just pour it on the ground. And let's make a little mound, like a little hill-like. And you pour water, you'll notice immediately on top, as you pour the water, it forks out as it travels downward. Those forks get bigger and bigger and bigger in the mountain, and they turn into rivers. Now, water travels all directions. Now, one of the meanings of the consonant D is the direction water flows. If you go to a well and you want water to come from the well up, you call it drawing the water. If you're drawing water into your mouth, we call it drink. If the water is in a sink, we have a drain. It's draining. And so when you see the consonant D and the R together, that in nature is the direction water flows. We have words like down. Now, water flows down. You don't see that part. That part's hidden from us. And the water flows down into the ground. Water flows on top of the ground in all directions, depending on the lay of the land, the terrain of the land, so to speak. Water also, when it's drying up, when the sun hits it, the drying process is called evaporation, which in a sense is a type of vacuum. It evaporates and goes up. Water is always traveling in a circle, all direction. So always keep that in mind when you see the word even in Oera, talking about the AY. That is the essence, the flow of water. for it takes the flow of water for all life, all plants, all animals, and all people to live. When you see a tree and forking up to heaven, that's the flow of water made that. And water follows the path of the magnetism, the magnetic waves form. And the Earth has a magnetic waveform, both north and south pole. There's a magnetic waveform, and if you would make it visible, it would look like a big apple. Diane painted a picture. We named it Nancy's Song, and it shows snowflake, and we showed a snowflake moving in that form of the big apple. And without that magnetic waveform shaped like the apple, it's got a positive and negative, and they're coming together, and they're always moving. So a lot of people don't realize that a vortex action takes place after the flower is formed. The flower vortex pollen that comes flying through the air, and it sucks in the pollen. A lot of people don't see it and don't realize it, but it's there. There's a tiny little tornado light, ever so quiet and silent, but it's there. If you can visibly see what's happening, you will see a turning, and all turn the same direction as the Earth, the sun, the Earth, the moon, all the planets, the galaxy, and so forth. All turns the same direction. Water on Earth all turns the same direction. It always turns in the direction of the turning of the Earth. And water is always seeking to go down. And if it can't go down all at once, like in a drain, you pour it on the ground, part of it goes down, part of it goes out, and then part of it, when the sun is out, is always evaporating. So anyway, let me see if I can say any more. For the new student, this might be, you might not get it the first time because it's not meant sometimes to get it the first time because it requires meditation and study and observing the flow of water. Let me see if I can think of another thing or two. My eyes are blue. I cannot read writing on paper, so it makes it a lot harder to make these monologue videos. So excuse me for a moment as I pause. Water does not lie. It's always, it always flows from gravity. Always pulls the water down. Whether it falls from the sky in the form of rain, whether it's a waterfall, water is always seeking to go down. And the deepest places of the earth that holds water, I don't know how deep they are. I know it's many miles. It's very deep. And water does not change its natural physical action. It's always going to, as I've already pointed out, it's always going to move, it's going to flow. When I was a little boy, my daddy taught me how to go through the forest and find drinking water. And he taught me always, if you're in the forest, always follow the path of water. Never venture far away from a source of water. And when I was living in Mobile, Alabama, it really gets hot down there. I mean, it over 100 degrees, high humidity, and And I never, when I was a little boy and I went through the forest, I never had a water bottle with me. I didn't even know what that was at that time. We got people everywhere and they'll carry a water bottle, and I don't like them. I don't like the bottled water they sell in stores. It doesn't taste right. Something not right about it. It's odd. Something odd about this water. But anyway, I was about 14 years old, and I was walking through the forest that I've never been to before. This was just brand new for me, a new forest, a new adventure, a new journey. So I listened to my daddy, and I found this little low place in the ground, a little bit of water, and I followed that. And my daddy said, now, when you drink water, if you see a place in the ground where the water coming out of the ground, and usually there'll be rock around that area. So as I kept hiking, I got very thirsty, and I thought, I got to find me some water to drink. And I didn't want to drink the water right there on the ground, just just the normal flow on the creek. I wanted to go to an area where there was a little bit of an uprise, maybe just 6 inches higher, maybe a foot higher. And finally, I found a place like that, and I went. And usually, when water coming out of the ground, it pushes the ground up, makes it higher at that point. It may be, when you're in the flatlands of Mobile, Alabama, it's not going to be very high. Not like you are in the mountain. It's easier to find drinking water in a mountain because as you go up, you can find a waterfall, and the waterfall can be pristine, clear water, and flowing water is it always even in its behavior. Water doesn't jump up or go sideways. Its decision. There's that D again. Water is one of those liquid that always follows the path of D and R. It always drains downward. And like the word dry, I mentioned that already. Evaporation caused it dry up, going up. But anyway, I find this place near a few rocks, a little stone, and I looked at it and I noticed the water was cold. I said, now I know this is groundwater because I learned that when you put your hands in the water, if it feels cold, and the coldest spot, that's where it's coming in out of the ground, and usually there'll be a few rocks nearby because the rock worked their way up from the ground. And so I reached down and I drank that water, and it was perfect. Better than any bottled water you can find in these big department stores. I didn't have to pay anybody any money. I drank that water, and you talking about the best tasting water. When you're really thirsty, you're sweaty, and you're hot, and you are just, so to speak, I'm exaggerating when I say this, dying from thirst. Believe me, I was really thirsty. And when you drink that water, it tingles. When it goes in your mouth, you feel this tingle going all the way through your head, and it just tingles down and up and around and all around. And as you swallow it, you just feel energy. That's that magnetic wave. Because water follows and energizes and works with the invisible energy we call magnetism, or whatever you want to call it. And energy cannot exist without magnets, by the way. So that one of the core meanings of that word even, because water always behaves evenly. And so my daddy taught me, if you drink still water in a puddle and there's no flowing water, it's loaded with bacteria. It's loaded with microorganisms, and you might get sick if you drink it, or you will get sick if you drink it. So you need to find the source of water to drink where it starts to flow, and evenly the water flows downstream. And there's always, when you go into the forest, there's always places where the water is bubbling from down below, pushing up and filtering through the rock. And my daddy taught me, when you see those stones and that water coming from the ground, you know that that is a place where fresh water is made. And that is, in Orlando, that place would be called Run Stream. I can roll the R, see if I can do it. Broken teeth, it's hard to do. Run Stream. And boy, you're talking about good water. Okay, so always remember, always follow the flowing water to find life. And where I found that, fresh water in the forest in Mobile, Alabama, if you look real carefully around, you'll see footprints of animals, knowing that the animals come to that spot also. And you can see little hoof print. Those are the deer. You can see a squirrel footprint, raccoon, opossum, all kinds of furry creatures. And you can also see evidence of birds. Birds have to have water. So if you look really carefully and you got really sharp eyes, and back then my eyes were really sharp. I could read fine print back then. Now I can't read big print. But anyway, look really good. Just be real quiet and listen. If you're willing to sit long enough and you don't disturb the environment and you sit off away from that source of water and you just sit real still, and if the furry creatures are not afraid of you, they'll come out and you can watch in the distance. They'll come out and drink water. And you can see the birds and all these animals come together. So anyway, always remember, follow the flowing water, oh, me, mom. Follow the flowing water, oh, me, mom.